Hey guys, I'm back to do my next character review. Like I mentioned in my last video, this time my friend and I are going to be doing character reviews of Pocahontas from the Pocahontas franchise and Aurora from Keys to the Kingdom, the Keys to the Kingdom version of Aurora. My friend did his review of Aurora yesterday. I did my Aurora review a few days before that, and he did his Pocahontas review, I think, the day before that. And I'm here today to do my Pocahontas review. She's got quite a long list of complaints about her. Hopefully this won't be one of my 50-minute plus videos. Anyway, she's dull and boring, she has little to no personality, she's an inaccurate depiction of a real historical figure. She and her movie are racist depictions of Native Americans. She's overly sexualized. She has no chemistry with John Smith. She left John Smith for John Rolfe, despite everything they've been through. She doesn't appreciate Nakoma. She's too preachy. She's a bad role model. She's irresponsible. Her not listening to Nakoma got Kokowum killed. They ruined her personality in the sequel and made her way too bubbly. She's ugly. And she's the most neglected member of the Disney princess line, despite being the only Native American princess. Okay, starting with the whole she's dull and boring. Like I've mentioned many times, boring and interesting, much like, annoying and charming and that kind of, and funny and that kind of stuff. Those are all very subjective, excuse me, and very much in the eye of the beholder. So I won't get too deep into this. What one person finds boring, another person might find extremely interesting. It's too subjective and, too personal to get too deep into. I'm not gonna talk about it much since I've gone over it a lot. I mean, I think I've given this example before, but, I mean, the Harry Potter books and movies I know are extremely popular and have a ton of fans, but I could never get into them. And I always found them to be very boring and not at all interesting. Anyway, moving on. She has little to no personality. Well, as far as her having no personality, I definitely wouldn't say that. In my opinion, a character really doesn't have no personality unless you're talking about a very minor background character with only one or two lines. Like, I don't know, the woman from Aladdin that says, "Still, I think he's rather tasty," or something like that. I mean, even one-dimensional characters like, Prince Charming in the original Cinderella, Snow White's prince, they still have a personality, a very one-dimensional one, but still a personality. And having no personality gets thrown around a lot. I mean, Charming, Snow White's prince, Lola Bunny from Space Jam, Elsa from Frozen, Philip and Aurora, Madeline from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, too. Those characters and more have all been accused of having no personality. And, like I said, unless a character is a very minor background character, they have a personality. It may be a one-dimensional one, it may be one that doesn't appeal to you, it may be a poorly developed one, but they've got a personality. And as far as her having little personality, she's definitely got a three-dimensional personality. I mean, she's probably not an uber-complex character, but she's got a three-dimensional personality. I mean, she's very childish in some ways, because she likes to, have fun and be playful, but she's also very responsible because she wants to, she wants to make peace between her people and the, English settlers. And that sort of thing. And she's also very concerned with doing the right thing and how to do the right thing. So, while she's not what I would call an extremely complex character, she's definitely got a good three-dimensional personality. It may not be one that appeals to you, but she doesn't have little to no personality. Moving on. She's an inaccurate depiction of a real historical figure. Well, while her story is inaccurate, I wouldn't say that she's all that inaccurate. She's actually, like my friend mentioned, her personality is actually pretty similar to the real life Pocahontas. And as far as her story being inaccurate, what the heck does that have to do with her character? Plus, I mean, Disney's not in the business of teaching history. And I mean, pretty much all the Disney movies have been altered from their original version because they weren't really family friendly. And the original Pocahontas wasn't really family friendly either. She was actually sexually abused in the original story, and I don't think that Disney could get away with showing that in a kid's cartoon. So, much like how Disney alters the fairy tales because they aren't family-friendly, that's why they altered, that's why they altered the original story of Pocahontas, because it was not at all family-friendly. Moving on. She and her movie are a racist depiction of Native Americans. How? I mean, when I think of a racist depiction of Native Americans, the Native Americans in Peter Pan are the first thing that come to mind. They're drawn with very exaggerated features and have actual red skin and that sort of stuff. And I don't really see how Pocahontas is at all a racist depiction of a Native American. I mean, she's drawn in a realistic way. She's voiced by a Native American woman, except for her singing voice. Unfortunately, whenever Disney brings any sort of racial minority character in, people are going to complain about it being racist in some way. Just because they can. I mean, it's kind of like them complaining about Tiana only being made so that Disney could have an African-American princess in their lineup. And then they turn around and complain that Disney doesn't have enough racial minorities. Well, why do you think they don't? Because whenever they make a movie about one, people have to complain about it. I'm sorry, but how is she in her movie racist? Because they didn't go deep into the culture of Native Americans or something? No, what they did was, was explore the characters more, and I personally would much rather have strong characters than them just talking about the culture of the characters. That's my personal preference. I don't know about yours, but that's mine. And I see absolutely nothing, nothing racist about her in her movie. So, nice try, but, stop coming up with these weak reasons to dislike a character. And if you want Disney to start making more racial minority characters, stop complaining about every single one that they make. She's overly sexualized. How? I mean, while she does have a nice, sexy body, that doesn't equal overly sexualized. I mean, she doesn't even flirt that much. She's definitely not as sexualized as, say, she's definitely not as sexualized as, like, Jessica Rabbit. Who's drawn in a very unrealistic way. And I mean, if you're going to blame her over-sexualization on the fan art, because I've definitely seen some, very sexy pictures of her in fan art. If you're gonna blame the over-sexualization of her on the fan art, that's very invalid, because that's not Disney doing it. And having a sexy body does not equal overly sexualized. I mean, in my opinion, even if a character is sexualized somewhat, like, Lola Bunny or Jessica Rabbit or something like that, I still don't really have a problem with them unless being a sex object is pretty much their only personality trait. And you know, like my friend mentioned, she's definitely not as sexualized as she as a real Native American woman, since a lot of them ran around topless. um, so, and she does have a more realistic body than a lot of the Disney princesses, like especially Jasmine. And I know that she's not a princess, but like Megara, who's basically a stick figure, and who's definitely more sexualized than she is as far as flirting and that sort of thing. So people need to realize that having an attractive body doesn't equal over-sexualization. She had no chemistry with John Smith. While I wouldn't call them the most developed and best couple, excuse me. Sorry, sorry that I've been burping so much. Probably didn't need to hear that. While I wouldn't call them the most developed and, best done Disney couple, I also wouldn't say that they had no chemistry. I mean, they were shown developing as a couple, her teaching him to appreciate nature and that sort of thing. I do have an unpopular opinion, and don't hate me, that I prefer her with John Rolfe, but, I mean, even if you hate them as a couple, which, like I just mentioned, I personally prefer her with John Rolfe, even if you hate them as a couple, and I'm not overly fond of them as a couple. What on earth does that have to do with her character? I mean, just because they don't have great chemistry with each other, that doesn't make her a bad character. I mean, with some characters, I do think that it can be done so badly that that it can affect them as a character. Like one of the reasons that I don't like the character Anastasia is because of how poorly done her relationship with Dimitri is. I mean, when she falls for him out of nowhere, it sort of makes her look shallow and desperate, and like she'll fall for any guy and that sort of thing. So if a but yeah, I know we're not here to talk about her. So I mean, if a relationship is done in an extremely poor way, I can see. I do think it can affect the character to an extent, but I definitely never thought that Pocahontas and John Smith's relationship was that bad. To the point where it made both of them, where it made her look like she would just fall for any guy and that sort of thing. Um, I mean, even if you don't care for their relationship, um, and I don't really see that it's done that as badly as like Anastasia and Dimitri's relationship, but to each their own. Um, they may not have the best chemistry in the world, but they definitely have chemistry. Um, Sorry, I'm not all here today. Like I said, they're definitely shown developing her teaching him how to appreciate nature, um, and him growing as a character and learning to appreciate it and growing to and maturing and growing to love her and that sort of thing, and even being willing to give his life to even being willing to risk his life to protect her father. So I don't really see that it's that poorly done a relationship, and definitely not so bad that it affects her character. She left John Smith for John Rolfe despite everything that they'd been through together. Like I just said, I have the very unpopular opinion that I prefer her with John Rolfe. But yeah, I do think that could have been handled a lot differently, a lot better. Um, I mean, even though I do personally prefer her with John Rolfe, I definitely wouldn't have had her just uh, br- uh, brush John Smith aside like their relationship had never happened and that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, I can definitely get this complaint, even though I prefer her with John Rolfe. Um, it, but I do think that this is more a complaint about the poor writing in the sequel than Pocahontas herself. Um, um, I think that this is definitely more a complaint about the poor writing in the sequel than Pocahontas herself. And, unfortunately, that's why, poor John Rolfe gets so much hate, because, the, transition between love interests was handled so poorly. Um, so, yeah, instead of hating Pocahontas for, leaving John Smith for John Rolfe, and, doing it in a poor way, if I were you, I would just, chalk it up to, poor writing in a badly done sequel. And that's my personal opinion. Um, Sorry, I'm probably not the best person to talk about this complaint, since I've got the unpopular opinion of liking her better with John Rolfe. But I do understand where you're coming from with this. It's definitely not an invalid complaint. She doesn't appreciate Nakoma. Um, I don't think that it's so much that she doesn't appreciate her, but, more that, more that she feels like she needs to go against her traditions to make peace between her people and the English settlers. I do think that it could have been handled a little bit better, and could have shown a little bit more of her appreciation for Nakoma. But I think what's going on is that Nakoma is very traditional and doesn't want anything to do with but believes that the English settlers are very dangerous and doesn't want anything to do with them, and believes that the Native Americans should just keep to herself. Whereas Pocahontas thinks but believes that they should go against traditions and make peace with them. I do get this to an extent. I think that their relationship could have been handled a little bit better and shown the appreciation and shown her appreciation for her a little bit more. Like my friend mentioned, one of the few things that was actually written pretty well in the sequel is her goodbye to Nakoma. And it does show the strong bond and friendship that they have with each other, and how much she was going to miss her. So I get this to an extent, but I don't think that she's completely unappreciative of her. She's too preachy. Yeah, I can get this one to an extent. She does get a little bit too preachy for my taste in some parts of the first movie. Not to the point where it makes her an unlikable character for me, but to each their own. I mean, if she's too preachy for your taste, that depends on how much preachiness you can handle. But for me, when I think of a character that's way too preachy about, like, saving the forest and that kind of stuff, a character in a movie that's way too preachy about saving the forest, the characters in the movie that come to mind are, Fern Gully the Last Rainforest. I mean, the characters in the movie are so chocked full of, save the planet, save the rainforest, blah blah blah. There's practically no story going on in that, no logic, and it's really shoved in your face a lot more than with Pocahontas. So yeah, this one I can get to an extent, but there are a lot more preachy characters than Pocahontas, and a lot preachier movies than her movie out there. She's a bad role model. Again, as I've mentioned many times before, while she does have her flaws, and is human, and may not be the ideal role model, since she makes mistakes, there are far, far, far worse role models than she is. Since she does actually learn from her mistakes, and is actually shown as being kind and caring and that sort of thing. And why is it that whenever that whenever there's a character with normal human flaws, people complain about them being a bad role model, but then when there's a Mary Sue, people complain that's actually intended to be a role model, like the early Disney princesses or Belle and that sort of thing. People complain about them being a bad role model too. But anyway, while she does have her flaws and does make mistakes, she may not be the ideal role model like Snow White or Cinderella or Belle or something like that. There are far worse role models. Like, any of the kids from, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka movies, besides Charlie. Like, any of the Disney villains, like, any of the kids from Jessie that are that definitely weren't intended to be role models. Because she actually learns from her mistakes and develops as a character. She's irresponsible. No more than the average teenager. No more irresponsible than the average teenager. I mean, yeah, she is shown goofing off and having fun and that sort of thing, but, I wouldn't say that she's any more irresponsible than the average teenager. While she does, disobey her father and go against tradition, that was done to try to make peace between, between her Native American tribe and, the English settlers. So, I don't really see that as being, irresponsible. So, I don't really see that she's any more irresponsible than the average teenager. I mean, in fact, she's quite responsible. She is shown as being pretty responsible since she does try to be the peacemaker. So this is pretty nitpicky and invalid. Her not listening to Nakoma got Kocoum killed. Well, it was actually Thomas who killed him. And, yeah, since she didn't listen to Nakoma, he ended up getting killed trying to rescue her from, the, English settlers who he thought was dangerous, but it was a frickin' accident. And, again, why are people always complaining about somebody accidentally getting someone or almost getting someone killed, but they never complain about Tinkerbell, who intentionally tries to kill Wendy? That's real double standard. So, nice try, but come up with a better reason. They ruined her personality in the sequel and made her way too bubbly. How? I mean, yeah, she is shown being, excited and bubbly more frequently in the sequel than in the original, but she's in a completely new environment. And is very excited and curious about all the new stuff that's there. In the original, she was shown being excited and bubbly whenever she saw the the new things that the English settlers had bought. So you have to take into consideration that that in the sequel, she was in a completely new setting, and so she is going to act in kind of a different way than she did in the original. I mean, even if you dislike the sequel, you even if you do dislike the sequel, this is still kind of a illegitimate complaint about her in it. Moving on. She's ugly. Really? This is, how, superficial and shallow, are you planning to get? Because what the heck does her being ugly have to do with her character? Personally, I never found her ugly. I always thought that she was, very beautiful. While beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I never found her to be ugly, but it has absolutely nothing to do with her character. I mean, but choosing to like or dislike a character solely based on their looks is a very weak reason to do it. I mean, there are characters that I dislike, that I find attractive, like Sinbad, and Flynn Rider, and some other characters, and characters that I love that I find ugly, like Ursula, and Quasimodo, and Mama Odie. And I mean, I don't care if you find them too ugly or too handsome or whatever, too ugly, too attractive, whatever. Disliking a character solely based on their looks is a very invalid reason. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the personality of a character, so nice try, but pick a better reason. And finally, she's the most neglected member of the Disney princess line, despite being the only Native American. Well, this is much more a complaint about the Disney princess line than Pocahontas herself. I mean, while I can understand you being upset that, they don't show more of her in the Disney princess line, that's not really a valid reason to hate Pocahontas. And I doubt that the reason that they, I doubt that the reason that they don't have more of her in the Disney princess line doesn't have anything to do with racism. It's because she doesn't have a lot of, pretty ball gowns and that sort of thing, like the rest of the princesses. And so she doesn't translate very well into the Disney princess line. Into a lot of the Disney princess products. But it's not at all a valid reason to hate Pocahontas herself. I mean, by that standard, I should hate Scrooge, because he's the most neglected member of the secondary Mickey Mouse and Friends characters, since, since he's in less merchandise than any of the other secondary Mickey Mouse and Friends characters. And despite being the only rich character, the only Scottish character, the only elderly character, he's the most neglected member of the secondary Mickey Mouse and Friends characters. By the way, for those of you who don't know what secondary means, it's the relatives of the friends and relatives of the Sensational Six. But I know the reason that they do it is because he has the harshest personality of any of the Mickey Mouse and Friends characters. Therefore, he doesn't translate well into a lot of the children's, especially preschool children products. And so he doesn't fit well in stuff like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and educational stuff for young children. So while it does sadden me and hack me off sometimes when I see that he's been left out, it doesn't make me love him any less, and it doesn't change the fact that he's still my favorite fictional character. So, the fact that Pocahontas isn't in as much as the other Disney princesses shouldn't change the fact that shouldn't diminish your love for her. If you do like her, I can understand why it bothers you, just like it bothers me that Scrooge is in less of the Mickey Mouse and Friends stuff than any of the other secondary characters. I can understand it bothering you, but it shouldn't make you love her any less. And that's about all I have to say. Personally, I do like Pocahontas a lot. I do get some of these complaints to an extent. I do get some of these complaints to an extent. But some of them are kind of nitpicky and invalid. I do like Pocahontas a lot. She's sorry, I lost my train of thoughts. She's my sixth favorite Disney princess after Snow White, Tiana, Elsa, Mulan, and Ariel. She's my sixth favorite Disney princess. She did move down a little bit. She did move down a little bit on my list, but I still like her a lot. And I guess that's all I have to say. The link to my friend's 2 videos and my first video will be in the comments section below, or the description box below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye and see you next time.